and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Shari Upbin, and I will be your host today. Today we are continuing our discussion with female directors. We felt that this topic required more than just one episode. If you missed parts 1 and 2, you can always check them out on YouTube. Well, this is part 3. Let me introduce our panel for today. The talented Margaret Ledford, the very talented Genie Croft, the great Nicole Stodard, and the fabulous Jazmin Jones-Oliver. Everyone here is working right here in South Florida, a theater director, so this will be a great conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like very excited because some of you are back and welcome. Very interested from your perspective. Would you consider yourself emerging, or are you an old pro like some of us?
I'm definitely emerging. I've only been in this business for 3 years.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Jazmin Jones-Oliver, and I am the theater director at the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center, and I'm also the artistic director of the African Heritage Youth Theater, so I work in arts education and children's theater, ages 9 to 16. And this will be
Those are your actors, 9 to 16?
9 to 16, and this will be my 4th season.
Do you do the classics, or do you do new works?
I do a little bit of everything. A lot of the students that I come in contact with, they've never been on stage before. So a lot of them are like late to the party as far as being introduced to theater. And so I try to play with their strengths and their weaknesses, and I give them stuff. The idea is to build up their repertoire.
Would you do a show like Fences with them?
It depends on the age, how many of the older ones that I have. So recently we just did Day of Absence by Douglas Turner Ward. And so that was a pretty difficult show to do. It's one, there's a lot of kids, there's 16, and they doubled characters. And it was kind of controversial, but it was a way for me to educate them on their past, what it's like to be African American in the 1960s in a southern town.
Do you film your work?
I do. It's something for them and their parents to see. It's something for them to go back to.
And do you have a staff, or is it your gig?
I just got a staff this year. Thank you for asking. Been there 3 years, and I just got staff. So I'm really excited. I have 2 very great South Florida actors that are helping me out with the students. So thank you. We can talk about that later.
Okay, well, welcome. And for the one person that doesn't know about Margaret, would you tell us?
My name is Margaret Ledford, and I'm the artistic director of City Theater in Miami.
That's it. The rest, we can look it up.
I've been working as a director, a freelance director, and a director, resident director of Promethean Theater for 8 years, and a freelance director for the past 15, I guess, years or so.
And you started off as an actress.
That was the gateway drug back in college, but actually came to directing by way of stage management.
We're going to talk about stage management.
Yeah, I couldn't afford grad school, so I knew I wanted to direct, so I just got a set of skills and went and watched great directors work.
Yeah. And that's the way to do it. Genie, just a little bit about Genie.
Okay. I'm Genie Croft, and I am one of the directors of Primal Forces right now. We direct a full season of professional plays. I'm also one of the founders and the artistic director of the Women's Theater Project. And I've worked at many, many theaters here in South Florida for a very long time, and happy to say I continue to work as a director.
How long did the Women's Theater Project be in
We
business?
started in 2002, and then we closed, now I'm trying to remember, I think in 2015.
Oh, so it was a while.
Oh, we existed for quite a while, and we kept growing. I mean, we started out doing readings, and I could not believe the amount of women, especially, that were so attracted to the idea of women's voices being out there in a new capacity. And so it just kept growing and growing, which was really wonderful. But it was really founded and developed because we needed those voices, and they were not being heard. And it was about, to go back to one of the things you were talking about, Jazmin, we needed diversity. It was really important. We also needed to get away from sexism, which was so prevalent.
So that's what this program is about.
Right, and the issues with ageism.
That's
and
another
so
world.
that's why we went in so many different directions. We really tried to offer a variety of
And you
pieces
did.
and women doing a lot of different things. I'm also proud to say, because this is really important, that the technical work was done by women.
Yes.
Okay.
So more than just on stage
So
and
we did it all.
directing. We did it all.
We're still doing it all.
Yes, we are.
Nicole, tell us a little bit about your theater.
Sure. I'm Nicole Stodard, and I am the founding artistic director of Thinking Cap Theater. We've been based in Fort Lauderdale. We worked out of several different spaces from the time we started in 2010. And in 2015, we moved into our own dedicated space, the Vanguard, and we are just about to announce our 10th season.
Oh, congratulations. Longevity. Did you, any of you catch the program before this? Part 1 and part 2?
Yes.
Was there anything
Indeed.
particularly? Yeah, I mean, we have a half hour, so let's see what we can get in. Why are we here? Why are we still here, still talking about this?
I think Genie said it so well, and part 1 is that the topic is women directors, and we're still being called women directors as opposed to just directors, which is why we're here.
Right.
Was there anything that stood out in your mind?
I mean, I think to speak to what Margaret just said, you know, there's a reason why we have to gather together and identify as women directors. I think. Would you like for me to share a quote with you?
Well, there
Or would
was
you?
a quote that we did speak about, and what was it? Was it exactly, if you don't name it, it won't change?
Yes.
I think this is important. Let's listen to this.
Okay, so there was a study done in 2002 to women scholars in theater. Their names are Susan Jonas and Suzanne Bennett, and this is an excerpt from actually a master's thesis, I think at Princeton. Without historic precedent, without role models, mentors, consistent statistical data, women are constantly reintroducing themselves to the field. As perpetual newcomers, they are constantly elbowing for their place at the table and defending themselves against charges of inferiority. And they are caught in a paradox. They do not want to be counted as women artists, but simply as artists. Yet, when gender is not counted, it continues to count against them. What is not perceived cannot be challenged or altered.
And was there a date on this?
2002.
2002.
So 17 years ago, and it sounds like it was written yesterday.
Yes, this morning.
Yes.
Okay, now,
Now
this
that's
is a little
really
bit frightening.
pathetic. And it's
she says
pathetic.
pathetic, frightening. Do you find it
Sad.
sad?
Yeah, and it seems to be an immovable mountain.
Okay, well, we're here today, and I think in 25 minutes we're going to change the world.
We're going to move the mountain.
We talked
as
about
we
this
do.
earlier about women supporting women, and in that quote, it hinted at mentorship, which is something that
Yes.
I didn't receive.
Role models.
Exactly, and Gladys talked about this in the previous episode, having Gail as her mentor, as sort of her guiding light. If I would have had that, I probably would have been a little bit further in my career.
You?
Yes, I didn't have a person who nurtured me wanting to direct. It was like, just be an actor. And I didn't see myself as just that. And so it's something that I'm trying to instill in my students, especially my female students, that you can be just more than just a talent on stage, light, set design, wardrobe, costume. It's so important.
But without having a one-to-one mentor,
Yeah.
did you have any role models as you were growing up?
In theater, no. And I strayed away from theater for about 10 years. And then I had to come back because it was my true passion. And I think if I would have had a mentor, I would have never strayed. So this is why these conversations are necessary. This is why mentorship is necessary. This is why we have to constantly reintroduce ourselves to this field, because those things are not in place. And men don't have to do that. Little boys don't have to do that.
See, that's so very true. One of the things we were talking about before is, I remember all my college classes as a theater major, every technical class was taught by a man. I mean, every single technical class, including, stage management, but costuming, things that you assume women are going to teach, and stage makeup, and, set design, and lighting, was taught by a man. And, I mean, the women taught theater history, and voice and diction, and then I wonder
dance.
because
And dance.
and movement, but and this is one of the things that's so important to mentor with young people coming up is the technical areas where women are just as proficient, just as talented, and we don't have enough of that.
How do you think we can change that?
How do, I mean, I think that we are in a really interesting moment right now, and that we are seeing change. And I think the reason we're seeing change is complex, and I think part of it has to do with making noise, right? And actually and calling it out again and again and again and again. I think that has opened doors and created opportunities for women to direct. I think that women have been supportive of other women. I mean, one of the things that I was mentioning in the green room before this taping was that I had hired 3 of the women on the last panel. They have all directed for Thinking Cap. I've also hired men, but I have made a conscious decision from the very beginning, from founding Thinking Cap, that we would have gender parity in our programming of plays and in our hiring of people behind the scenes.
So there's an answer. So then
You make it part of your mission.
So here's a question that's just for thought. If there were, well, I know the answer. If there were a man and a woman going out for the job, who would you pick?
The best person.
The best person.
Absolutely, the
At the end of the day, we're people.
the best quality. They're people
Yes,
first.
we're people first.
Okay.
And hopefully good artists.
Okay, but very often, and I'm going to be a little controversial here, very often you're up against men who have more of a resume than you do.
Well, then you do what Nicole, you make sure it's a part of your mission to hire female directors. Likewise with me, okay, you don't have a resume, but you have to start somewhere. And how are you going to go out and do amazing things if you don't have a resume to begin with in the first place? So next season, when I'm making it in my business, we're going to do a play by a female playwright, and it's going to be a one-woman show. It's going to be directed by a woman, and now that woman director has that on her resume, and then now she can go and get another job.
Yes. Now, I mentioned, I was involved with the League of Professional Theater Women, and what we did was to make, this is going to belie what you said before, we made a conscious effort to hire women. Even I did a show where I needed a drummer, and there was a male drummer, and I was very pleased that it was a female drummer.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, why am I, thinking this? But it's important that it has to start somewhere.
Absolutely, and I say the best person. I'm in a very unique position where I get to hire a bunch of directors, and I try for parity. I try to make sure that there are women and there are men. And also, I think that when you talk about a man having a better resume, I think innately men are more confident. And I mean that society bolsters their confidence better. So even if my resume is the same, I may not be as in your face as a man.
Should we? Should we be in how could we retain our integrity?
Our delicate floweredness.
Well, somewhere in the middle. Because all of us here, every woman that is sitting here, I think we are out there. I think we're professional, we're aggressive, and I'm not sure if we ever thought that we would defer to any man. I think the people who are sitting here
We wouldn't,
right
but
now.
you said something very interesting. When you say a male is aggressive, it's considered a compliment.
Right.
And very, very important for the male persona. When you say a woman is aggressive, it takes on a totally different perception.
There's a word.
And that's
There's a
culture.
word.
And that's culture. And that's a long fight. We're doing that every single day now.
There's Nicole and I did a project this summer called She Shorts, and it was female focused short plays, and one of the characters was a Latina trying to get a job, and her African American friend says, "You just walk in there with the confidence of an average white man, 40-year-old white man, and you'll get the job."
That's facts.
Right?
That is a fact.
Okay, so we can sit here and talk about what is wrong, and what is wrong. I am a positive person. What can we do to help change what has been going on for many, many years? Now, look, there's the Me Too movement, so that's what we did. And we marched and we were loud, and a lot of people got arrested, and it's just awful. And I think we read the newspaper, and sometimes I go, oh my, and you wonder, you know, is it always true, and we're getting them, and it's this and that? Okay, fine.
I think we have to continue to do the work. All of us are in positions of power. We use the little bit of power that we have and continue to do the work. And 20, 30, 50 years from now, we'll be able to look back and those women were in the trenches in the heat of it all. And then it may be different from I don't know if I'll live to see it, but I mean, I'm the younger one here. But
oh my goodness, if you don't live to see it, who's going to live to see it?
The children that we educate. I mean, mine in particular. We just have to continue to do the work, and the more we do the work, as drooling, as annoying, as difficult as it is, we just have to continue to do it.
I think it did start. The grandchildren who are 9 years old. Do you think they have any idea that they can't do whatever they want to do?
No, I think that there's a different philosophy. I mean, we can talk as mothers and some of us here and whatever.
I mean, I don't look old enough, but I am a grandma.
Yes, and so am I.
Yeah.
And so am I.
Really?
Yes, I
Okay,
am too.
got that out of the way.
And I have a granddaughter and a grandson, and they both think they can do anything they want.
And the same here. There's
but
absolutely,
I did that
even
with
my
my kids.
daughters
You did
are
too.
like that.
And
My
that's a
daughters are
cultural
like that.
shift. That
Yeah.
is a
It's a shift in the
cultural
right
shift.
direction.
But
I mean,
that's what, so,
It's a conscious choice you make when you're mentoring or you're mothering or
Teaching
you're
or-
teaching, and however you're doing it, that you're saying to those people, you can be anything you want to be. You are imposing the limits. But you know, when they get out in the real world and they're out there,
let's
it's
talk
there,
about
you know.
South Florida for a minute. Okay, because we've just spoken about the world and, you know, how it is out there. And I think as a result of this program, I know all of us sitting here are going to have a sense of awareness, and whoever's watching will walk away with a sense of awareness. And that's good. So we're doing our part. Now, do you feel that there's equality or no equality, or we're in the middle? What are your thoughts about South Florida, right here?
When it comes to the hiring of women directors?
When it comes to awards or being recognized, probably none of us will ever work again, but we don't care.
Right.
We'll produce our own work, which is
That's well, we end up founding theater companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, our local awards organization for our 3-county area, the Carbonells, have been around since 1975. So do the math on that, right? And in many decades, a woman director has won twice.
in,
40,
I don't know why I want to laugh. Well,
40, 45, 40, but
45.
well, it's
right?
not because they're not.
and women are directing. Look, Gail Garrison was just here on the previous episode, nominated multiple times in the 90s, right? Margaret, nominated 8 times,
But
has
you got a
never
Carbonell.
earned a
Not for
Carbonell for
directing,
direction.
not for
No.
For what then?
Lighting design for a show I directed.
Seriously. Isn't
The
that?
lighting design for a show you directed.
Yes, I've had many of my actors and shows and original pieces nominated, and I won't even go there right now.
So do you think that there's something, what do we do about that? I mean, is it important?
It's politics. It's politics, and it's not unique to our scene. It happens in every theater city all over the world. So it's not that South Florida is the only one that is guilty.
Well, let's look at the Tony Awards. Now let's
Yes.
just travel and let's look at the, what is it, the Oscars? So, you know, when a person of color or a woman, they go, oh, this is wonderful. So are we where we are supposed to be? Is this?
I mean, I think that South Florida is a few steps behind in terms of being of what the if New York is a barometer of change, right? I think that we're a few steps behind in terms of valuing the work being done by women and people of color in our community. I think we are definitely raising awareness. We've been on the awareness campaign for a couple of years now.
How?
Now we're
Yes.
just waiting for results. I mean,
Have
you
you
know,
written to anyone or spoken to anyone
know-
about it, or you have?
I make a fuss every Wednesday in our staff meetings. I don't know how far that goes. That's just me. But I am making a fuss weekly about, we talked about this earlier, how Miami in particular, South Florida, is such a diverse and multicultural place, but it's really not. We're very segregated in a lot of the ways in South Florida, and it's a mirror to American society. But we can talk about that in another episode. As far as African American theater,
Well, we've got a little bit time.
the M Ensemble
Speak your
is
mind.
like the go-to for African American theater.
Okay.
And
And
there's
who is the
so-
head of that of the
You have
ensemble?
Pat and Shirley.
Okay.
Shirley Richardson.
We'll have to get Shirley on the show next time.
Yes, and they're the go-to, and they know they're the go-to, right? Love them dearly, but when it comes to theater for people of color, especially when you talk about the Carbonell, they'll make sure they go to at least one of those shows. And this is going to be us visiting a theater of color, just to say that we did it. And there's so many other ones, and even my theater, we put on shows all the time. But if it's not the M, then it's like, oh, what do you guys do? How long? We've been around since 1975, just as long as the Carbonell. Next year will be 45 years of being in existence. But it's not given the same
weight. Right.
weight.
The same way, and audience development is also different with that. Now, I mean, and I can say with a lot of pride, Women's Theater Project and also Primal Forces, I've done a number of shows that were either an all-black cast or a one-woman show with a black actress. And I mean, I just did Having Our Say last season. My audience, and even Women's Theater Project, which is in Fort Lauderdale, the audience for those shows was 90% white all the time.
Yeah. And then that's a conversation about access.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
What do you mean by access?
So how do we fix that?
When she's talking about audience development and me talking about access, do people of color know that are they welcome in these spaces?
Right.
That's a whole nother.
It's a whole different
Right,
vibe.
that's-
whole
and-
different
Do you
vibe.
think that would be a good program?
Yes.
Oh yes, yes.
I would go to a show all the time if I know I was welcomed in that space. In here, and we have so many South Florida actors of color.
What do you mean by, I just call it the way it is. What do you mean by welcome? I'm not sure
when
I
I walk
understand what
into
that
a
means.
theater,
Yeah.
do I feel like I belong? Do I feel like you created?
Even after you paid your money to
Even
get
after I
a
paid my
ticket?
money, customer service. Are you talking to me as a patron? Or are you just talking to me because you just think I just fell into the theater?
Is this just South Florida? You don't mean?
I don't experience
think
this anywhere else, but I'm
think
sure it
it's-
happens other places. But I definitely experience it as a woman of color. I definitely experience it. And I've been in theater all my life. But even as a professional, I deal with, oh, you're a director? I'm young. I'm a woman. And
Where's
I'm a
the
woman
director?
of color.
Yeah, where's
the
the real
director?
director?
Really?
Where's the
That
real
was- that's what-
director?
You, and it's,
This is fabulous because, Nicole, you know, when you said you've got, what is the exact slogan? You need to call it and to name it?
Yeah, if you don't actually identify the work as being work by women and call attention to its significance, historically it's gone unrecognized, it's gone unfunded, women have gone unhired, and you know.
So do we have to be louder, or should we be softer and think of ways, not softer, but in a different,
Persistent.
approach it. I know, this is better. Approach it in a different way. We're very good at that. I mean, you can approach it head on and bang people over the head.
I mean, I
or
think
do
you have
other
to
things.
have uncomfortable conversations.
Right, like this.
Yes.
I mean, this is not uncomfortable.
We're
I'm talking
comfortable.
about like,
Uncomfortable.
you know, I think
You're
one
comfortable?
place in our community where a lot of conversations have played out for better or for worse has been on social media. And this is not unique to South Florida. There have been bonds formed And there have also been enemies gained through social media and the breaking down of barriers where we can access all of the critics. Critics can access actors, artistic directors, designers. And
How
we
many
have
women critics? I'm interrupting because
Sure, yeah.
we have just a little amount of time. How many women critics are there in South Florida?
I mean,
There's
two
I think
dedicated
two.
critics, Christine Dolan and Michelle Solomon,
Okay.
and then you might also include in that Mary Damiano,
There you
who
go.
is
And
affiliated with
Connie
the Carbondales,
Right.
and Connie Ogle. But Connie is the book reviewer for the Miami Herald and doesn't frequently get assigned to review
Okay,
productions.
so it's 3 out of. There aren't that
Well,
many.
there aren't that many anymore because of the lack of
Circulation
papers.
of
It's all different
Online.
now. It's
Yeah.
all changed.
You know, I think though,
And I think Bill Hirschman's pretty fair. I'm
I've
going to say that
been
because he's always on Spotlight. on the
encouraged to
Arts.
see
He
that
is
there
pretty
is
fair.
actually attention being paid to the importance of theater criticism in the wake of all of the critics, sort of disappearing throughout the country, that we are now seeing that we have to cultivate future theater critics.
I need to end on that note.
Wow.
Oh, here we go again. I wonder if they'll ask us for part 4. We'll just keep on going until we all get jobs and awards. No.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank all of our directors who joined us today. And of course, I want to thank you for watching. Now, keep watching for more programs like this, where you, the audience, become educated firsthand in your private viewing of our thriving theater community. We welcome emails. We want emails on these programs. It's very important to know that you're watching and you have something to say. You can email us at spotlightonthearts@browardschools.com. All the past episodes of Spotlight on the Arts can be seen on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and do a search for, what? Spotlight on the Arts. Look for the picture of Iris Acker, the creator of this show. And as Iris would always say, go to the theater.